From deforestation to rising temperatures, the effects of environmental neglect are evident everywhere. But in Ethiopia, a powerful movement is taking place, one fueled by hope, unity, and vision for a greener future. The Green Legacy Initiative is more than just a campaign. It's a call for action, galvanizing Ethiopians from all walks of life to plant a greener and prosperous future. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be delving into all this. And my guest today is Dr. Tegenu Gossa. He's an archaeologist as well as a researcher. I'm your host, Shifarao Lako. Do stay with us. Dr. Tegenu Gossa, many thanks for being with us today. It's really good to see you again.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
So in order to kickstart our discussion, I know that you have traveled to different parts of the country so far. So first off, could you tell us some of the things that you have seen and some of the places you've been to? And what are some of the things that have stuck with you?
Great, yeah. If I remember correctly, we met almost last year at the same time.
Yes, sir.
And we ran a lot of programs together related to this human evolution story because there was an international conference happening in the country.
Yeah.
So after that, I left, and almost a little bit less than a year, I returned back, and a lot of stuff changing, specifically in Addis Ababa. You know, the city is undergoing a lot of transformation, and including the area where we work on, like Arat Kilo, Amos Kilo area, where it is completely transformed, including the landscape in the National Museum or the Ethiopian Heritage Authority compound. So you return back, and our first stop is in that area. So we can see easily the transformation going on, and there is a lot of change, and not only in Addis Ababa, of course, in the country in general. And then I went to the field. And so, as you know, I work in the foothill of Bale Mountains, and we do have this project called Malkawakanna. It's a paleoanthropological site, and we were there for almost a month working on the annual field season, excavating and doing a lot of work. And there is, I could witness a big move in terms of even agriculture. Irrigation is a common thing, and it's becoming a really good practice in the region, in that specific area, I mean, because there is a huge dam. Malkawakanna is the name of the big hydro dam. So people are into cultivating different crops 3 times a year. And I could see this kind of thing creating a lot of impact on their life. Myself, this is really great. And yeah, all along, if you travel across the country, and you could see, and it's easy to witness a change, and a lot of development works going on. The road constructions and all this kind of stuff. So probably in a week time or so, I'll travel to different parts of the country as a tourist myself. So I'm sure I'm going to witness a lot of stuff.
Wow, that's really interesting. And this really makes me think about how rich Ethiopia's history is. Talking about which, can you give me a quick overview of the evolution that Ethiopia has gone through? I know it's kind of broad, but could you give us this synopsis of the evolution that Ethiopia has gone through so far?
It's a lot of change. I think it's not only economic or social transformation for that matter. And with the programs this government instilled and trying to implement, and there is the whole lot of rebooting going on in the system in general. And this is going to change a lot of the entire makeup of the country. Change for better, not for worse for that matter. So we always talk, for me as a profession, I talk always about the country's past. That is the area I can dwell on and give as much information I could. But the economic transformation of the country and the foundation being laid, and of course there are a lot of problems here and there, you can see there. But this could be temporary, but there is a very good foundation that's being laid, which I can witness myself. So this is going to transform the country. In a way, it's going to transform the livelihood of people and, of course, the economy of the country in general. And with the mega projects nearing completion, specifically the GERD, for example, and this is going to be a very significant addition to this transformation that's planned and that's undergoing already. So generally, this is the whole point. And with regard to the past, and which an area I could relate to, I think there is bigger enthusiasm going on in revealing the resource we do have related to the deeper prehistory or the deeper history of humanity in general. So, as we last year covered extensively, this country has a lot of resource related to the deeper history of humanity. And I can go in lengths explaining what are these resources, but for the sake of time, we can mention the fact that information extracted by researchers for over 50 years now, extensively I mean, for almost close to 50 years now, are revealing a huge resource of prehistory in the country. That is related to the entire history of humanity in general. And so, the next question, this research is ongoing, and a lot of information is coming out, and this will continue. And we keep exploring, and there are many researchers coming into the country. There are many research projects ongoing in the country, including areas that are not previously explored. And as you know, when we talk about the history of the country, usually the key historical places are in northern half of the country. So, with the advent of archaeology as a discipline and archaeological science being taught and programs being opened in different universities in the country, it has created a chance for young researchers to be produced, and by that, these young researchers are exploring different parts of the country, which is expanding our knowledge about our country in general, and it's giving the chance to explore the entire country for that matter. Because we do have universities from across the country right now, in every corner of the country, and this is opening up opportunities. When it comes to prehistory in general, and we do have a lot of information, and as you know, or most of the people who are interested in this prehistory, that the country harbors almost 6 million years of human history. Together with, of course, neighboring countries, Kenya and Tanzania, which we cannot always exclude because this goes in harmony. But the resource in terms of record, Ethiopia has an unparalleled record when it comes to all these heritages. So we need to continue to explore this, and our research is ongoing, and the research of many projects are ongoing, and more information is going to come out. And it means it's going to further pile up the history we do have and the record we do have so far.
Interesting. And with such huge resources, what are some of the things that Ethiopia is doing in order to properly promote them and also to benefit from these huge resources?
This is an interesting question because we do have a lot of information, and we are a custodian of, as I said, 6 million years of human history. So now, as you go deeper, we share these records and with these heritages with the entire people on the planet. So what are we doing with that? And how are we promoting this to make it visible? And how are we marketing all of these resources? Is an important question, and thank you for asking this one. And to be honest, when it comes to this heritage related to deeper history of humanity that we are having, my assessment is we are not doing enough, and we should do more. And because when it comes to heritage, always the marketing, promoting, we always talk in the form of, in the lens of tourism, right? And okay, that's great, and let's see for a while where does Ethiopian tourism corridor lies until now. There are two main known corridors where foreign tourists usually come and go to, even including the locals. This is the northern corridor, which basically focuses on the historical places located. You can mention, for example, the historical churches in Tigray, in Amhara region, including Lalibela, Aksum, and all these sites are one of the bigger corridors where tourists go to. And all the tourist packages we do have either goes to the north, to these historical places, or the next one is to the south, which is mostly ethnographic kind of adventures, where we witness the living culture of like majority of ethnic groups living in the south, are attractions that we do have. So these are the two main corridors we do have so far. So the most important thing when we talk about this tourism related to as one key sector, the prehistory, we are talking about diversifying this very limited corridor or this limited tourist attractions we are selling to the foreigners, and also for locals, and for our African brothers and sisters. And we need to do more to bring them home and them visit. And in the process of diversification, this one of the big resources you mentioned we do have is this paleoscience, and the resource we do have. And yes, when we talk about deeper prehistory or paleontology or paleoanthropology, we often talk about individual findings, right? Like we talk about Lucy, discovered in this age and discovered in this part of Afar, and then Ardi, Idaltu, many fossils, right? These are individual findings. Yes, these are really scattered. And we need to bring them together, synthesize it, integrate it with the natural and historical attractions we do have, and market it as such, so that tourists can go and visit these places where these findings come from. But you can go today, in terms of landmark, the only thing you do find if you go to Afar is there is some kind of statue in a place where Lucy is discovered exactly. That's a barren land, and you can just stop there and visit and just return back, and there is nothing you see there except that statue showing that this is where Lucy came from. How can you market and sell this thing, this story? And people just visit it here in the museum, and they just visit the museum, that's it. But if we integrate those with the already existing attractions and natural wonders in the country, then people will have a chance, and for visitors will have a chance to know more about this one. And I will talk later about how we can integrate that, just mentioning one brief example. And to be honest, the initiatives of the Premier, Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister, is great in this regard. His own initiative, he built many destinations in terms of key, potentially promising areas where people can have, like in terms of expanding the infrastructure, I mean. It's a great job. But this infrastructure needs to be integrated with the stories I'm talking about, and developing new corridors, new avenues, new thoughts. This is very much needed. So, yes, there are these destinations where people can have a lodging, for that matter, spend more time. But how can we connect with the stories, and especially the heritage we do have historically and in terms of prehistory? That is our challenge. That's our next challenge. This is where we have to focus on. And this will help to diversify our tourism sector. And we have to, when we talk, for example, about tourism, you have to always have a strategy of how to maximize your comparative and competitive advantages, right? Yeah. So this paleo science is where we can maximize, compete with any country, and be successful and win, for that matter, a lot of market. Because few countries or no country in the world has these depths of history of humanity stored in one place or in one country. And we can compete with any country if we play the game like right, and if we can promote very well, and we can win. We can compete and win, and comparatively we do have the advantage of maximizing the output of this one. So we need to come up with a very, very good strategy where we can exploit this for the greater good and benefit of the country. So this is our challenge, and we need to think differently. And the fact that our tourism is heavily relying on these two historical corridors, historical and ethnographic corridors in the south and north, is not enough. And we have to think, and we have to really sit and think on how to exploit this resource. It's a huge, huge resource, as I told you, where we can compete and win tourists.
That's such a powerful message, Dr. Tegenu. And building on what you've just said about Ethiopia, let's kind of switch gear a little bit and talk about some of the things that are currently happening. The Green Legacy Initiative. In your own terms, how would you describe the benefits of this nationwide initiative, be it economically and also in protecting the environment? What are some of the benefits of the Green Legacy Initiative?
Yeah, before I come to the Green Legacy, which is very much linked, we can also link this legacy, to be honest. And the Green Legacy is basically the soul of the country. And it's about respecting nature, and it's about respecting our highlands, our mountains. And I will tell you how that happens. And we can take example of how we can integrate all. I talked about the natural wonders, right? One of our natural wonders are our environment, our habitats, natural habitats, which should be protected very much. And we need to work on that one as well. But before that, for example, let's take some examples, right? Earlier I said that when we talk about Ethiopia's prehistory and we talk about individual discoveries, right? Yeah. Prominent discoveries, something like that. That will usually end up on like very high impact magazines like Nature, Science, and all this kind of stuff. And then they can attract news because these are like big findings. Beyond that, if you change the perspective and see where this discovery come from, and the whole nature and the geology and the landscape of where these discoveries are coming from, you will understand. And earlier I was talking about diversifying our corridor. Let's talk about Nile. Let's talk about I'm just changing perspective to make sense to people, like what can be done in terms of expanding and the corridors. Let's talk about the Nile River, right? So this is the longest river in the world. Heavy politics is going on, and this river is in the mind of the entire world people for the last 6,000 years, let's say. So, Nile River, which the biggest one is the Blue Nile, which originates from Ethiopia, northern Ethiopia, gave rise to one of the oldest civilizations in the world, historically speaking. That's the Egyptian and the Nubian, or the Sudanese civilization, right? So it starts somewhere around like the ancient Egyptian, Nubian, Sudanese civilization goes back to around like close to 4,000 BC. If you add up the 2,000 in the AD, you'll be like 6,000 years of history, right? Of one of the oldest civilizations in the world. That's an African civilization, right? Okay, let's compare Nile with another river in Ethiopia. For example, Awash, or Omo for that matter, or Wabi Shabelle for that matter. These are by itself natural wonders, for us, at least, right? Let's take, just for comparative sake, Awash. Compare it with Nile. Nile gave rise to this civilization of 6,000 years of historical period civilization, right? African civilization. Awash River, if you look at the Awash River, the majority of sites where the biggest discoveries come from in Afar, in the Middle Awash, and also Lower Awash. These are all located near Awash River, one river. Even on the upper course, there is a site called Melka Kunture, which is 50 kilometers south from here. It's located and sitting on the Awash River. So Awash River, one river, harbors 6 million years of human history. This basin, this drainage basin by itself. And you see, if you just switch the perspective, this is what you get. If you just switch your perspective from just the discoveries and look at the landscape and the natural features where, or the landscape from which it's coming, you get this. It starts with the Ardipithecus, the species, the oldest being discovered from Afar being almost 5.8 million years, all the way to modern humans that we talked last year about, for example, Homo sapien adult, which looks like you and me, it's 160,000 years. All of these discoveries come from the drainage basin of this river. And Awash originates somewhere very, very close to the two lakes, lake basin, the Wanji and the Dundee. The origin of Awash River is not far away from these two. And in terms of developing the tourism and like building some kind of infrastructure, you know what's going on in Wanji and now in Dundee. There is construction and there is already a destination. You can easily integrate this. Awash is right there. It's not far away from there. It originates from there. And if you look at Awash, Ardi, for example, the 4.4 million year old hominid, Lucy, 3.2 million years, Salam, 3.4 million. All of this drank from the waters of Awash. And if you want to talk about Awash, Awash is not just a river. Awash is the original water where our very, very old ancestors are drunk from. So Awash is not just an easy river. Awash is, in a way, if you want to, and I'm just can be emotional about it, Awash is just a holy water. I consider it to be, because Awash is the river from which Lucy drank, the grandmother of everyone. So Awash is not just a river. And along this drainage basin, from its origin, all the way to its final destiny, which is still in Ethiopia, you can create a story where people can follow and visit. This is how you can market it. This is how you can promote it. This is just one example. Omo Gibe has the same kind of discoveries all along its course from central part of Ethiopia all the way to Turkana. And my own project, I work in the headwaters of the Wabe River. So the Wabe River also has this kind of record. And Ethiopian rivers are not just providing us waterways. They harbor histories of humanity. And we need to integrate all of these knowledges together and market it and sell it. And because these are not just simple waters, these are not just rivers flowing and providing some kind of economic opportunities in terms of hydro dam or irrigation or whatever. It goes beyond that. As I told you, Nile, there are few rivers in the world that compete with Nile when it comes to the historical civilization. It could be the Tigris and Euphrates in Iraq area. or maybe the Indus Valley civilization in India, or the Yangtze and the Yellow River in China. It's even much older than this. So our rivers, be it the historical period or the prehistoric ones, they are the centers of history of humanity. These are not just rivers. So it's up to us, to create all these kind of scenarios and stories. And when it comes to the Green Legacy Initiative, it started as an initiative, and I really appreciate the fact that we are paying attention to rehabilitating our environments. That we did not pay attention to. And I always see that in our history, especially since the dawn of 20th century, we created a lot of problem to our own environment. And there was a lot of degradation going on in the country because we were directly consuming the nature. When you directly consume the nature, for example, cut down all the trees, burn them. Yes, it's our livelihood and we have to do it. But this has been ongoing, in which, since the beginning of 20th century, there are statistics that I used to study in the geography classes since high school. We all tell that by the beginning of the century, Ethiopia's forest coverage was about 40%, and by almost 1970s and even earlier, it went down to 3%. See, imagine how much we were directly, that's what I'm saying, we're directly consuming the nature without rehabilitating it, without knowing how to save it, protect it, or anything. So, a lot of degradation is going on. By the way, the fact that we do have monsoon rain or summer rain is because of our mountains. If you didn't have the mountains, look at today's Somalia, by the way. The rainfall system, or the wind that brings in moisture into Ethiopia, is the Indian Ocean. The hot air that rises from Indian Ocean flows almost northwest, and then it turns again into the Indian Ocean. It returns back after it passes through Eastern Africa, and then it goes to India. By the way, the same system gives this monsoon heavy rain in India. It's the same thing. So, Somalia, because it is lowland, our neighboring country, and there is no mountain that traps and of course pushes the air to rise further in the sky so that it will condense and come back as rain. Because there is no mountain in Somalia, Somalia is a desert. If our landscape was not highland or the mountains were not there, we would have been desert. So the thing is, these mountains are the ones, when this air with the moisture hits the mountains, it starts to rise up. And then it will not pass, and it will condense, and it will give us rain. So it's because of our mountains we do have these big rivers I've been talking about. It's because of our mountains we do have this relatively good amount, stable and good amount of rainfall every year. But maintaining this requires protecting our mountains. And as you know, that so far our agriculture has been dependent upon this naturally existing rainfall, seasonal rainfall. And we already know that we fall short in terms of providing enough food for our own people by just producing in a natural cycle. So the government already understood and heavily investing on irrigation, right? Irrigation requires a lot of water by its very nature. And if you want to continue to produce and be productive in the lowlands of our Ethiopia, be it in the southeast, be it in the center, or northern part of the country, we need to have the water. And the existence of the water entirely depends on how much we can protect the mountain peaks of Ethiopia. If degradation continues in the mountain peaks of Ethiopia, where the majority of the rivers arise from, then we will not continue to have the water that we need is going to feed our agriculture in terms of irrigation. And the government sees irrigation to be the future, and of course we saw promising results. But This depends on how much we can protect the highlands and mountain peaks of Ethiopia. There is still a huge settlement, and there is still a huge deforestation going on in the mountains of Ethiopia, which we cannot reverse only by just this seasonal tree planting cycle. And the government strategy that was started to rehabilitate our environment need to go further than that. Because it is very important that if we think that irrigation is the future of Ethiopian agriculture and food self-sufficiency, which is the right way to go, and we need to work on and continue to work and further keep up with this Green Legacy Initiative.
Interesting. Moving on from there, I really would like to hear your thoughts on how Ethiopia can change its environmental protection efforts into economic benefits, like through the sales of carbon. In this regard, what are some of the potential that Ethiopia has, and what's the future ahead?
Yep, we can sell some carbon through the United Nations initiative that brought about selling carbon to the richer countries that are polluting the world, right? That's not the biggest gain we are going to get. The most important thing is caring for our environment, including rehabilitating, afforestation, tree planting of extensive magnitude, is about reversing the course of destruction we have been on for almost 100 years or something like that, or close to that. And it is highly related to our own survival. It's heavily related to our sustaining ourselves. And so this is basically the soul of the country. Like we are not planting the trees just to keep the record of like, we planted this much tree, and we want to inspire neighboring countries or countries beyond all of this. Yes, this has element of it, but it is highly, highly related to our own survival. And the world is suffering from climate change induced by, we call it anthropogenic and human impact, is creating a huge chaos in the world. Just this week, or what happened in Texas, right? And the massive flash flood killing more than 100 people. I'm just mentioning that very, very recent example, right? A few years ago, I remember news that 1/3 of Pakistan, 1/3 of the entire landscape of Pakistan was flooded because the glaciers on the Himalayas were melting and there was a heavy monsoon rain. 1/3 of the country was flooded. These kind of extreme weather scenarios, and you saw last year, and also, of course, this year it's happening, the summer heat waves in Europe is creating huge, huge problem. And it's becoming really, heralding really big signal to world powers, including the European for that matter, that yes, the climate change and its impact is here, and it starts to already affect us. Luckily, we were not suffering too much from it so far. But if this keeps escalating, it will be here soon. And the best we can do locally is rehabilitating our environment, including the Green Legacy Initiative, which I already said need to grow further than this.
Talking about glaciers and the climate variations in different parts of the world, especially in Europe, as you know, with glaciers melting in different parts of Europe and in other parts of the world, many experts say that Africa could be the next place suitable for living. What's your take on that?
Yes, Africa has a very diverse landscape and located in a very good place, I can say, that the impact of this climate change, global scale climate change, is not affecting Africa to the magnitude we see in, let's say, Europe or even Asia and the Americas, North America, Canada and US. US is suffering a lot from this impact. And probably Latin America is also better situated. But Africa is a huge land mass, and it has already a very, very diverse landscape. That means we do have a better, so far we do have a better chance of reversing the impact of climate change. And the fact that Africa has been a place where humanity and human species have been living for the last 6 million years is not without a reason, right? So we do have a diverse landscape, and if something goes wrong somewhere, you migrate, by the way. And one of the serious causes, like the background or the underlying factor for the Nile Valley civilization to arise is related to the desiccation of Sahara, which happened about 8,000 years ago. And when Sahara used to be like green, lush, expansive landscape where like all kinds of wildlife and hunter-gatherer society have been living. And then it's 8,000 years ago, because of this El Nino, ICTZ, they call it, it's a movement of this belt, it started to dry up. And then people has to move in all directions. Some went to the north, some went to the Western Africa, to the south. The others went to the Nile Valley. And it's with this aggregation of people, hunter-gatherers, in this Nile Valley corridor, after Sahara became desert, that gave rise eventually to what we call this oldest civilization in the world. That's the background of it. That means whenever something changes in Africa, Africa has already a big landscape where people can move on. It's not only a big landscape. Asia is much bigger than us, right? No, it has a very, very diverse landscape, and it is a very diverse, like the biodiversity in Africa is huge in terms of species, in terms of all this kind of stuff. This is actually what sustained life for all this period of time. And we have a bigger chance, but it still depends on, and also we have a trade. Sahara is expanding still, and it's expanding fast, and we have to react fast. So it doesn't mean that, Africa is like immune from disaster that's coming. We need to act. We need to collectively act. And with even all the degradation happening in Africa in general, we still have the very good hot biodiversity spots or diversity spots in Africa. And Africa is the only place, I can dare to say Africa is the only place where megafauna centers and survived in the world.
Well, Dr. Tegenu Gossa, researcher and archaeologist, many thanks for your insights and for your valuable contributions. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we have seen today, the Green Legacy Initiative is more than just planting trees. It's planting hope, reviving ecosystem, and inspiring the next generation. And each seed in the ground means a step further toward a greener and more sustainable future. And together, we can build a country worth inheriting. Thank you so much for having been with us so far. And until next time, it's a goodbye from me, Shifa Rawlak.